And we start with a beautiful live look over downtown Buffalo. We have a little bit of sunshine breaking through the clouds and a little more so right now compared to probably what the rest of the day looks like. And we have a warm start. Enjoy it before the cooler air comes in and rounds of rain. And welcome once again to Storm Team 2. Beyond the forecast, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Stenonis.
And I'm Lauren Maroney. Yeah, it looks very deceptive out there right now.
At the moment.
Temperatures are very similar to what they were this time yesterday. We have more clouds, but some peaks of blue, so you'd think it's going to be another nice day, but not so much by the end.
The weather pattern's changing once again, and hopefully you got your rain gear because you're going to need it. We're going to, especially with some steady, soggy conditions, especially later tonight into tomorrow morning.
Very soggy, and for what has already been such a soggy spring.
Did you say like it's 12th now?
I was just talking about this on the noon. If we stopped spring today, not even counting the rain that we're going to get today, just through May 4th, we would be the 12th wettest spring on record, and that is counting all the other years that got to finish the month of May. So really wet.
A little soggy out there, but at least our lawns look beautiful. The gardens are loving it, and also no drought.
That is true.
Locally, at least. So that's some good news. And we are going to add to the rain. Not quite yet, though. We have, like you saw, a mix of clouds and sunshine. We'll enjoy that for at least a little longer this afternoon before we do see some rain. We have just some nuisance rain showers moving across Allegheny County, as you can see. Mostly light, just maybe a brief moderate downpour. But really, we're looking at later afternoon and especially this evening with this cold front approaching, and you can see the rain off to the west and southwest. That's going to be moving in as we put future look in motion here. Yeah, it's going to get pretty soggy with these wet roadways as we head into especially mid to later evening hours and overnight and into tomorrow morning. You can see probably a soggy start to your day tomorrow as well. Before most of that rain does move out with improving for the rest of the day. But in terms of rainfall totals, it does look like several spots are going to reach around an inch and a half for that rain. And that takes us into tomorrow morning, maybe some isolated higher spots. So future look, closer look, we'll have mainly dry conditions for our northern zone. That is until we head into evening time, probably commute time, especially at the tail end of it. We're going to see some even brief to moderate to heavy downpours and rain, just soggy conditions. So heads up on that into tomorrow morning as well. And here's that wider look across our entire area. Western New York into northern Pennsylvania. We'll start to see things bubbling up a little. Some showers and maybe some isolated thunderstorms, mainly south and inland as we head through later afternoon time. Looks like most of any severe weather activity should stay off to the east of us, mainly for the Finger Lakes region. We'll keep a close eye on it just in case. And for us, you can see the rain does pick up in intensity and coverage as we head into the evening time, and through evening hours we're going to see just soggy conditions rest of the night. Overnight tomorrow morning as well, you can see just a wet start to the day, but quick improvement. Even mid-morning, most of that will have moved out. And for the rest of the day, we'll probably just have some cloudy conditions, maybe a more nuisance isolated rain shower, and probably similar to Thursday, a little more sunshine with maybe just an isolated pop-up shower for the afternoon. All right, back to today. I do want to note the Storm Prediction Center does at least have a portion of our area, as you can see, under a low risk of maybe isolated stronger storm. Main threat would be some damaging wind gusts, some very heavy downpours. You can see it's for areas south and inland, might clip Wyoming County, southern tier counties into northern Pennsylvania, Cattaraugus, Allegheny counties. So that's where we have a little more instability in place. If you look at the instability outlook and some of these severe weather parameters we look at, including CAPE, which is the convective available potential energy, you can see it does have some higher readings there. Still not too high though, but just enough to tap into some of that instability as these storms develop and move through, mainly for that area of that low risk, as you see in the Storm Prediction Center. So again, that's south Cattaraugus, Allegheny, might clip portions of Wyoming County and into northern Pennsylvania. So that's later afternoon, early evening. Then you can see the instability does wane as we head into the evening. So at least that's some good news, just that brief window of time of maybe that isolated stronger storm. Again, most of it does look like it'll be more east into the Finger Lakes region. Shower chances for the rest of the week then do become more, well, just nuisance. We'll have plenty of dry time, but we'll just be cooler and some on and off rain shower chances expected. More on that in a moment. Want to show you these very nice temperatures right now. We are nicely in those, well, 50s, even some 60s, 61 for Buffalo, also Angola, 63 for Jamestown, Olean. So, oh, what a nice start, and got a little bit of humidity too. So feeling very nice. Lake Erie water temperature bumping up to 47 now. And a look ahead, we'll have those temperatures at least maintaining in those lower 60s, some mid 60s. Rain, maybe a few thunderstorms, especially as we head into late in the day, evening time. And then that coverage does increase as we progress through the evening. Now, winds, we have that gusty breeze as we continue into the afternoon. So mainly for the first part of today, current wind speeds 25 miles per hour Buffalo, 22 for Niagara Falls. You can see that southwesterly flow. So we're seeing those higher wind speeds and gusts, mainly for those Lake Plains, once again, including Buffalo into Niagara Falls. You can see 45 miles per hour winds for those wind gusts in Buffalo. And then they do drop as you head further south for Dunkirk, 30. And 30 for Jamestown, 47 for Niagara Falls for those current wind gusts. So we're still going to be having that gusty breeze for the first part of today into the afternoon. That'll continue. But then once that front moves through, you can see then the winds will be decreasing nicely and pretty quickly during the evening hours. Let's talk about the chilly conditions. So we have that warm start to the day, first half, and then that cold front drops through and we will be chilly. And reinforcement cool pool of air coming down for basically the rest of the week and probably into at least the start of the weekend before we do increase with our temperatures. So here are those highs, running about still 10 to 15 degrees below average, especially later on in the week. Mid to lower 50s for your Wednesday. Low 50s around 50 Thursday and Friday, and probably low temperatures for a couple mornings in there, dipping down to those 30s before we do pick up with those temperatures increasing near 60 for Saturday. Mid to lower 60s expected for Sunday. So at least for Mother's Day, we're getting closer to the averages and probably even some inland spots, mid 60s. So let's talk more about those low temperatures. So first, we'll have those highs today, feeling comfortable. Then we're dropping down overnight lows 40s for tonight. Tomorrow, we'll have highs in those low 50s. But then it's into Thursday morning. We do probably drop into those 30s once again, although not quite as cold as we dealt with the last several mornings, especially late week into the weekend, which we had several mornings of frosty conditions. This looks like maybe just some isolated spots of frost, not widespread like we were dealing with. So looks like Thursday morning will be chilly with those lows dropping down, probably some mid to upper 30s, and then Friday morning as well. Before then, at least temperatures will be on the increase. Does look like it might be a little cooler. Maybe some mid to lower 30s, especially south for Friday mornings. Just a heads up on that, and then it should be overall smooth sailing with our temperatures. There's the humidity levels, that little increase for just the first half of today, and then we'll be refreshing with our air mass and lower levels of humidity for the rest of the week. So your weather headlines. Rain moves in, especially as we head into tonight with a few of those thunderstorms. And then tomorrow, the rain early, giving way to mainly just those mostly cloudy skies, and cooler conditions will pretty much be with us for the rest of the week and into at least the first half of the weekend with some limited shower chances. Rest of today, we'll see some of those thunderstorms developing, mainly south and inland, and then that widespread rain, soggy conditions for tonight and into the overnight as well. Low temperatures into the 40s. And then tomorrow's forecast will have that rainy start to the day. Sunrise note 6:02 a.m. for tomorrow morning. And then more of those nuisance isolated rain showers into the afternoon. Otherwise, we'll have mostly cloudy skies. High temperatures for tomorrow afternoon in the mid to lower 50s. And then as we head into Wednesday night, will be mainly dry, chilly though, and sunset 8:22 p.m. Nice. We will have at least some sunshine as we head into Thursday after that chilly start. High temperatures not increasing by too much, highs in the low 50s. But guess what? We're going to be milder for Mother's Day and probably for the entire weekend. At least we're increasing with our temperatures. We'll be near closer to 60 degrees on Saturday, partly sunny, maybe a few of those possible rain showers, mainly afternoon time. And then Sunday, high temperatures for Mother's Day in the low 60s. We'll have some sunshine, milder conditions, but we'll probably see some rain showers potentially for late in the day and especially as we head into the evening. So we're going to continue to update that as we get closer on the timing, but it does look like for your Mother's Day weekend hourly forecast, both mornings starting out in the 40s, increasing to those upper 50s to near 60 for Saturday. Mainly some sunshine and maybe a few of those nuisance showers late. And the Mother's Day Sunday, we will have at least an overall dry first half of the day, and then we'll have to watch for some of those shower chances for late in the day and especially into the evening. So stay tuned as we'll continue to adjust that forecast as needed and probably get some gardening in. So your forecast for this weekend, I know we're bringing it back. At least we can get out in the yards and continue to prepare. There's some things you can plant right now and some things you still probably want to wait for. For more on all this spring gardening, we have Nate Mills.
So this Section in through here are all the fruit trees.
Chris Zeiss knows a lot about gardening.
Peach trees, cherries, pears. Each one of those is a bud, and each one of those flowers is going to turn into a fruit.
As manager of Russell Trees and Shrubs for over 30 years, he's had to deal with all types of disruptive weather in order to make sure his company's supply and his own personal garden stay in good shape.
The winters used to be really rough, years ago, and then we had a stretch where they weren't so bad and you could manage it.
Unpredictable weather is a trademark of Western New York in the springtime. I mean, look at today. It's 70 degrees and sunny on Monday, but by Friday, it's expected to be rainy with temps in the mid-50s. Although this year has brought unseasonably wet weather to the region, and it's posed some challenges to local gardeners.
It's just not even just the wet, but the few cold nights we had recently, so we held off on putting a lot of stuff out yet because we have to cover it. We lay it all down, cover it with frost cloth, and that's a lot of work.
It's tough. I mean, imagine being a commercial farmer and grower and trying to deal with that. Things like adding organic matter to the garden. We think of compost and things, and that's great, but even adding some sort of bulky, even like a mulch that you would normally use to put around your plants, trying to put some of that into the soil can actually help aerate it a little bit. You don't want to do that when the soil's very wet because that just ruins the soil.
As intrusive as this rain may be, it might actually set gardeners up well in the long run.
For new plantings, it's a lot easier to plant if the ground is wet and ready to go versus trying to plant something and keep it so watered that it makes it difficult. Weeping mulberry and
until then, we can find Chris Zeiss pacing the droves of trees on his lot and gearing up for the busiest time of the year. Reporting on your side from East Amherst, Nate Mills, Channel 2 News.
Can't wait to get into the garden. Apparently you can already start planting carrots.
Oh.
We did that last year and they actually turned out pretty good. Some years are better than others, but over the last couple years, it was like our zucchini was great. We have been kind of lacking this year. We're just kind of waiting a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had the colder temperatures, especially this weekend.
It's been kind of up and down, yeah.
Those freeze warnings and frost advisories. So, all that tender vegetation, that term that's always kind of like, what is that? That's not great for that. But anything that's hardier, like carrots, will survive. Any kind of leafy greens do better in the cold. So that's a little tip for you.
This is definitely one of those years that I'm just glad I'm waiting till after Memorial Day weekend, which is usually the standard. Sometimes we get warmer and we want to put those in sooner, but I usually just wait a little bit.
Yeah, and especially
this year.
We've been so much cooler and wetter, and coming up I'm going to talk about, even though we're cooler and wetter, normally that means someone else is a lot warmer and drier. So we're going to talk about that coming up.
Welcome back to Storm Team 2 Beyond the Forecast. Lauren, are you taking us north of the border, it sounds like?
I am, yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Canada, specifically Western Canada and British Columbia, because they've been having a very different early mid-spring compared to what we've been having right now. So let's first kind of take you back. A couple weeks ago, I talked about, the layers of the troposphere, the different pressure levels that we look at when forecasting. And one of the big ones is that, 300, 200 millibar pressure level, which is the jet stream. So the jet stream, it's often referred to as, a river of air. It's kind of like a current that helps to dictate what our weather patterns look like. So this is kind of a snapshot of the jet stream right now. You see this big trough, and that is kind of contributing to what we've been dealing with those cooler, wetter temperatures, because when you have that trough, that dip in the jet stream, that allows a lot of that cooler Canadian Arctic air to get into our area. But what also can happen with the jet stream is that we get these blocks. So typically, it's that river of air. It's moving, it's pretty fluid. Air is also a fluid, just like liquids are. But it can also get kind of hung up when you have these pressure systems that really lock things in place. So this is an omega block that we typically talk about. That's when like a high pressure gets stuck between two low pressures. It is so named because it looks like the Greek letter omega. And when that happens, that high pressure system gets stuck over one area, and it tends to create a lot of really warm weather that is also pretty dry. There's also something called a Rex block. That's basically when you have a high pressure and a low pressure stacked on top of one another, and it also really locks those pressure systems in place. So speaking of a Rex block, that is what we have right now, specifically with that high pressure system just over the British Columbia region of Canada, and you have that low, which is around Southern California right now. And they've been dealing with this for a couple days, actually for a lot of the spring, because this pattern's been weakening and then it's been resetting up again. Just April 20th, they hit their first 30-degree temperature. I'm going to be talking about Celsius a little bit. So 30 degrees Celsius is about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. They hit their first 30 degrees for the country in British Columbia on April 20th. Typically, they do see it in late April, early May, but the past 2 years have been May 2nd and May 9th. So this is pretty early for that to be happening because they've just been dealing with such warm weather and the pattern isn't shifting too much. And I also just want to kind of show these current temperatures right now. Obviously, they are 3 hours behind, so they're not looking too bad right now. They're actually, this block is going to be weakening as we head through the rest of the week. Yesterday was their last really warm day, so temperatures aren't too bad right now. Also, that humidity isn't too bad, but in some areas where they do have more humidity, it's that heat index, and I think they call it the humidex in Canada, which is that feels like temperature. That is what can also be very dangerous when you already have those temperatures in the 80s. It can feel like the upper 80s, even the 90s, feels a lot hotter, but thankfully, because they've also been so dry, it hasn't been too humid. But this is the forecast right now, and you notice, areas like Phoenix, Las Vegas that we typically think of as very warm. Yes, mid and upper 70s. But if you want to take a look at some of those southern, more inland areas of British Columbia, 85 degrees, a lot of 70s, even some upper 70s. So it is unseasonably warm in that area of Canada. A lot of the reports that I was reading, because I kind of just did a deep dive yesterday, so that's why I'm covering this today. They're saying they'll be about 5 to 10 degrees above average, but keep in mind, those degrees are in Celsius, and a degree of Celsius is worth more than a degree of Fahrenheit. So really converting that's about 9 to 18 degrees warmer if we were talking in Fahrenheit. So that is quite a degree warmer, or several degrees warmer than what they are used to. So I just kind of want to talk about what happens when that high pressure system does get stuck in that Rex block, that omega block, specifically the Rex block in this situation. So high pressure is associated with sinking air. So that air is sinking, it kind of spreads out once it gets to the surface, and then it'll rise because it is warm air. But because that high pressure is associated with that sinking air, it can't really escape too high, and it just sinks back down. And when you sink, you warm, and it just kind of circulates upon itself, and you just continuously get those warm temperatures. So that's what they're dealing with right now. In fact, this weekend was pretty warm. There were 4 spots in British Columbia on Saturday that broke records. They were all 2016 records. Okay, so they actually broke or tied. 2 of them did tie. I'm just gonna convert that to Fahrenheit for you. But yeah, a couple spots in those mid 80s, 81, and then even upper 70s. So it was just very warm. Sunday specifically was quite warm. And I just highlighted all of those areas that got around that 30-degree mark. There was a spot, though, that broke a record that had been standing since 1898. So these are warm temperatures that really they're not used to seeing, at least this early or this persistent in the season. Again, I'm going to convert that to Fahrenheit for you. So Pemberton, again, with the way that the temperatures do convert, they basically got to 90 degrees, very close. And Osawuse, Cache Creek, Lillooet, Squamish. Sorry, I am not Canadian. I'm trying my best here. But yeah, all of these spots really broke, and even in some places kind of shattered a lot of the records that they've had for several years. So they're just kind of dealing with that warmth. But what comes with that warmth, obviously, we think of Canada as being a pretty chilly country. They do have a lot of snow cover. So there is even an area where they have an advisory for like higher streams, higher creeks, because there's going to be increased snow melt with those warmer temperatures. And so I also wanted to look at how things were being forecast for this. Unfortunately, we don't quite have the access to the sorts of like files that Canadians would do for like all of their national forecasts. So this is obviously from the National Weather Service America, but you do see this area of warmth. This is from a 6 to 10 day outlook issued on April 28th, and you see all of that warmth right in the northwest of our country, which would then bleed into Canada as well. Now, if we're looking at the current trend, it does seem like that is sinking south a little bit. There will be some improvement, but you also kind of see with respect to that precipitation, they're also drier. And then going back to that April 28th, with respect to precipitation, obviously the contour doesn't go up, but you do get that idea of those drier conditions also for that area. So that leads to drought. Again, I couldn't get a KML file for Canada. This is our current drought look, but there is kind of a North American drought collaboration that they have. I don't know why that didn't show up, but there are some drought areas, especially in the southern area of British Columbia. However, that was issued in the middle of April, and it's only valid for through late March, so it's not even taking into account how dry and warm they have been right now. And of course, with those dry conditions and those warm conditions, there is that fire danger. You see that graphic there, and specifically kind of that area of southern British Columbia is what they're dealing with, because when you are dry and you have dry brush and some gusty winds, that is enough to really fuel that fire concern. So that's always something that we're looking at with Canada and those wildfires.
Yes, and there's been several summers that we've had a lot of that smoke coming down from those wildfires in Canada. Yeah, high pressure systems can be helpful, and in some cases, not so much.
Yeah, especially when they're just sitting over one area for a long time. So if you're complaining about our cool, wet weather, really warm, dry weather isn't always better.
And we'll be right back after this break.
Welcome back to Beyond the Forecast. I just wanted to quickly come back to our region and talk about, that final freeze. I've brought up this graphic a lot, and you see, obviously, we have had freezing temperatures in May as late as the 24th. For us, we were actually freezing the morning of Saturday and Sunday, so even if that's our final freeze, that would be a May final freeze. And while we have seen those before in recent years, not so much, only in 2020 and 2002 within this century. And I was curious what things looked like for the rest of those Mays, because they had their freezes generally in early May. For 2020, they did a lot better. You hit the 90s by the end of the month, a lot of 80s and 70s. But for 2002, they ended up as the 4th coldest May on record. So there's no set trend to kind of indicate what we're looking at, unfortunately. But I was just kind of curious.
And late May even cannot come soon enough, because we've already had so many frosty mornings. All right, we'll be back 12:30 on Thursday. Patrick and Kevin, have a great day.